Isn't that incredible and beautiful? That's the sound of a baby's heartbeat in the mother's womb at just 6 weeks. Welcome to Straight Talk on Life Issues. I'm Victor Nieves, joined as always by Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute. And as you can tell, today we're going to be talking about something very special, and that is the power and the importance of ultrasound.
You know, Victor, back in my day when we were having children, ultrasound was a really new thing, and it wasn't remotely close to the clarity and amazing brilliance of what people see now when they go into for an ultrasound examination. It was a window to the womb, an effective one back then, but it has even more so. It's just exploded in its experience for parents who are able to see their child on that screen.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that, I kind of take this for granted, being that I'm young. Ultrasound has always been a thing in my life. That's just a part of pregnancy. You know, people have the pictures in their wallet or up on their fridge or their cubicle at work, but it's crazy to think there was a time where we didn't have that resource. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you could speak to that, the introduction of this and just how powerful it was for the first time. It's undeniable. Once you see it, it is undeniable. To get that for the first time must have been huge.
Yes, and what we have seen is that it has been a remarkable tool to change hearts and minds from abortion to life. Because as you mentioned, the ultrasound images were up in work cubicles. They were on mouse pads back in the day when we had them. They were on coffee mugs. They were on refrigerator magnets. And now multiply that times perhaps millions of times in the United States. And all of the people who see those little images are understanding the amazing beauty of the unborn child.
Well, there's a reason you've said this before, that 86% of women, even those who are really considering abortion, when they see their child, they know what it is. It's like right then in that moment, all of the propaganda from the pro-abortion lobby, it seems to go out the window for a lot of these women, because you can be told that it's just a clump of cells. You can be told that it's just tissue, but a clump of cells doesn't have a heartbeat. You know, a clump of cells, you can tell that is your child. And these women, they know it.
The propaganda goes out the window, Victor, and they know they were lied to. And they know they were lied to for an agenda to make money, to offer abortion. And so I think we're making converts not only to life when they see the beauty of that child, but also a resentment is building against the abortion industry.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, you know, I've experienced ultrasound through the lens of an uncle, but you as a father and a grandfather, I'm sure that your experience there is even greater. Maybe I hadn't thought of that before, but once you see it, the resentment is very real, of knowing that there are people out there who they know as well as we do. They know the same story, they know the same truth that we know, but they choose to pursue killing those children.
You know, and when our first grandchild was in the womb, we got an ultrasound picture of her. And I do international work, so I have friends and contacts around the globe. And I emailed that picture as far and as wide as I could. And our son was a little embarrassed about that. And I said, no, you don't understand. We're in the business of saving babies, and we love to see babies, even when they're in the womb. So I set him straight on that matter. But I got all kinds of positive feedback and joy from seeing that ultrasound picture.
I can imagine. And Brad, we're going to continue this conversation with 3 absolutely fantastic guests. So grateful to have them today. First of all, we have with us Robyn Blessing. In 2016, she was hired as the executive director of what's called Life on Wheels. Her passion is to see this expand all across Alabama and continue to use the power of ultrasound to serve women, to save babies, and to share Jesus. She has an awesome story that we'll definitely get to hear. We also have with us Thomas and Joanna. Their journey together is a special one. It was a pivotal moment in their lives. It was their experience with the abortion pill and the abortion pill reversal. It's a testament to the power of hope, faith, and determination, and inspired by their own life-changing experience, the two have dedicated themselves to sharing their story and raising awareness about abortion pill reversal and offering as much hope and support to others as they can. Finally, we have with us Cassandra Tompkins. She's a registered diagnostic medical sonographer. She's worked at the pro-life clinic for the last 2.5 years and has a lot of experience on just how powerful ultrasound really is. I want to thank everyone for taking the time and joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Joanna and Thomas, let's start with you. Tell us your story.
Myself and Joanna were faced with a very difficult decision. Just to give you a brief background on both of us, our relationship was still very fresh. We both had children from other previous relationships. We had brief discussions and we felt scared. We felt alone. And the decision that we pursued was to have an abortion. We go to Planned Parenthood, where the chemical abortion is like the number one thing that they give you. It's just a pill, you're in and out kind of thing, right? So
they tell you.
Yes. We had signs to not go through with this. We went to Planned Parenthood, right? It was too early into the pregnancy for them to actually do any procedure. You know, at the time, I missed those signs. Joanna felt a little bit differently. And I'll fast forward until the day that we do show up, and me and Joanna are in there. And, you know, when you're sitting in the waiting room, everybody knows what you're in there for, right? It's kind of like everybody looks the other way. There's no sense of like warmth and comfort. It's a difficult decision to make, right? And it's just like cold. Felt like I was sitting in hell. They pulled Joanna to the room aside and said, hey, you're going to take this pill, and then tomorrow you're going to take that pill. So, you know, they kind of watch over you. Like, it's, again, not a warm, comforting experience at all. Like, they're just like, sit in this room, in this plastic chair, take this pill, go home and take another one tomorrow. And they don't let you leave the room without watching you physically take the pill, right? So it's like you're sitting in the principal's office and all eyes are on you. And so you already feel that pressure. So Joanna goes and administers, she takes the pill. We leave. And at that moment, we drove back to Joanna's house. We're sitting in the kitchen, me and her alone. And we both knew we just made the wrong decision. All the thoughts of how we're going to live our life making this decision, it just struck us. And really, it was just cold. And we just didn't have words for each other. You know, she was going through her emotions. I was going through mine emotions. And just to paint a little picture, I remember sitting in the kitchen and looking out the window into their neighbor's yard. And they were celebrating a birthday. It was a girl's birthday. There was balloons all over the yard, pink balloons and everything. And I'm looking across the way and I see them, everyone laughing, having a good time, and us just made this horrible decision. So I was trying to communicate with Joanna and she was just like, I need my time. I need my space. So I gave her that. And when I left, I never cried like that before in my life. I was just sitting in my car screaming at the top of my lungs. It was terrible. I felt like God gave me a sign of what hell is really like, because I was just thinking about how could I even look at my kids that I have with making this decision, you know? So I immediately went to my phone and I just started looking up, like, how could we get out of this? And I searched and searched, and there was a few websites, and I'm sure you all know it's a lot easier to go online and say, hey, I want to get an abortion, than to say, hey, how do I reverse this abortion? And for me, I'm like, maybe there was one site, right, that was like, hey, call this number. So I call them. I'm all hysterical with them. And I'm like, you have to talk to her. You have to talk to her. And I called Joanna back and I convinced them to speak to her. In minutes, they had us on the phone with a doctor. They had us a prescription ready to go. She was like, okay, let's do this. Let's try it, you know, because again, there's not much information out there. I was searching for success stories. So like, it's there, but you really, really have to look.
Joanna, what was your perspective in this when you found out you were pregnant? What was running through your mind?
I feel like I knew I didn't want to have an abortion, but I was so focused on what my family would think, his family would think. And I kind of just, instead of listening to what I wanted, I kind of just went the other route.
So you're part of the 60% of women who feel pressured to have an abortion.
Yes, because if you would have asked me, oh, would you have an abortion if you were ever, I would tell you no. But when I was in that situation, again, I was thinking about everybody else around me. And the minute I took it, I wanted to like vomit.
After you found the prescription, were you referred to a pregnancy care center or a doctor's office that could show you an ultrasound?
Yes, that's when they sent us over to Bridge Women's Center in Old Bridge, New Jersey. And we had our first ultrasound with the women a few days later. And that was a whole other experience. We pulled up into this parking lot and it was a mobile van that did ultrasounds. And that's when we went in.
Yeah, we kind of looked at each other and we were like, are we in the right place right now? I kind of had like the feeling of there's like of the Underground Railroad, right? Like we have this rogue doctor calling us and filling a prescription for us. But we both looked at each other and we said, like, let's do this, you know? So we entered the van and you could immediately tell the difference between the two scenarios, right? Between Planned Parenthood and the experience we received there. Came in, everyone was loving, caring. They didn't care about our history or anything. They just wanted us to see that baby on the screen. So they stopped and they said to us, would you mind if we pray? I grew up a Roman Catholic, but I wasn't visiting church every day. And Joanna, the same. We weren't avid churchgoers. Once that happened, I knew, and seeing the baby on the screen, I knew we made 100% the right decision. And from that day forward, we kind of said that even if our story could reach one person, that's enough. I'm going to share my story. I want to be the reason and hope that other people can make.
Thomas, I want to ask, and you, Joanna, as well, how did you feel when you first heard your baby's heartbeat?
I was so relieved because I felt like, okay, the prescription is obviously working and it gave us hope. Definitely a sign of relief.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with going halfway through with the process, that's always in the back of your mind. Like, it was like a week after week, we would go and see the sonogram, and just hearing that our little baby was okay it didn't matter about any of all the other stuff that we worried about, our family, who's going to think what of us and all this. It just goes out the window. There's no better feeling than seeing and hearing that.
Thomas, how did it feel as a dad to know that you were able to save your baby's life?
I wear on my sleeve. Like I'm prideful of it. And as a father, that's what you are supposed to do for your kids. You're supposed to go out and save them in any way possible. Having gone through that situation, it just showed me more of what parenting is about. It's one thing to say you'll do anything for your kids, but having gone through that, it opened up my eyes of the true responsibility of being a dad.
Life has a way of smacking you upside the face sometimes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To make a point. Robyn, let's switch over to you. Tell us more about the mobile experience.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We're in one of those weird vans that he was talking about. We're with Life on. I'm the executive director of Life on Wheels. It's a licensed mobile medical clinic here in Alabama. We are currently serving in Montgomery, started out there. We've got now 2 buses in Birmingham, and we're going across to Tuscaloosa. Last year, after Roe was reversed, Alabama, they outlawed abortion. And so you would think, I get questions all the time, well, how is it now that abortion is outlawed? And I said, abortion is not gone, it's underground. Because we have had in the last year, well, this year so far, we've had 880 clients come to us. The question I get all the time is, how far along am I? I want to have an ultrasound. And I always tell people, well, I know in my heart what they're asking me. They're asking me, am I above 5 weeks or 6 weeks? Am I going to be able to go to Georgia where the heartbeat bill is in effect and you can have an abortion up to 6 weeks? Am I under 15 weeks where I would go to Florida? Or am I going to be able to order the abortion pill online from overseas? You're supposed to be 10 weeks or under. And so you really need an ultrasound for that. But we are finding, just like you talked about, when they see the baby, 89% of women who see their own child on ultrasound will choose to parent, even if they had an abortion scheduled. But personally, I am the most unlikely executive director because I had an abortion in 1988. We had moved to Alabama from West Texas, El Paso, Texas. I was married with a 5-year-old and took over a huge sales group. I had 300 salespeople and was traveling around the state. And 6 weeks after I got here, I found out I was pregnant. And I told my husband, I cannot be pregnant. And it's so strange because the word baby was not in my thoughts. I said, I can't be pregnant. I wasn't even seeing my 5-year-old, And so at that time, there were no rules about it in Alabama. I just looked it up in those days, old days, phone book, yellow pages. My husband, my 5-year-old, and I went to the abortion clinic. They went into the TV room. I went and had an abortion. It was a horrible experience. I remember saying to the lady, though, I said, I caught this early enough. Like I'm going to take Tamiflu or something, right? And she said, oh, we don't make those kind of judgments. I had the abortion. And I remember leaving there feeling relieved. I thought, whew, dodged a bullet. 28 years later, I'm working in a hospital and a doctor says to me, Robyn, I want you to come and volunteer. Well, he said, what kind of ministry have you ever done? And by the way, I'd been on a church staff for 14 years. We never heard the A word in church. Nobody talked about abortion. I didn't know anybody. I thought I didn't know anybody that had an abortion. And so I had no, voices in my head. I had moved away from home. I didn't know anybody that had one. And we just went for it. So 28 years later, he's asking me to get on this bus. And I'm saying, well, what do y'all do? And he starts telling me, and I start crying. I feel like I thought I was fine. And I said, oh, I've got to tell you something. I said, I've had an abortion. And he put his arm around my shoulders and he goes, Robyn, God will take that sin. And I'm thinking to myself, what sin? What are you talking about? Sin. I'm a Christian. And so I remember going home that night. I was praying and I said, God, if it's a sin, I'm sorry. But I have to tell you, I didn't really feel sorry. Because I just didn't think I'd done anything wrong, but I was repenting. The next night, my husband and I go to see this ultrasound bus that they're getting ready to launch in Alabama. He said, come look at this. And on the ultrasound bus, there's a loop of ultrasounds that they run. We have big screen TVs, and there's one up between the driver's seat and the passenger seat, and there's one in the back of the bus in the ultrasound room. And so my husband's barbecuing with these guys talking out there. I step up on the bus. And right on that screen, they're playing a loop of ultrasounds from this doctor's practice, and they're from 6 weeks to 13 weeks. Right when I step on those stairs and through the door, I see an ultrasound of a 9-week baby. And I said, Father God, what did I do? Because now it's real. Before, when you're 9 weeks pregnant, you aren't feeling anything but tired and nauseated. You're not feeling baby's kick. And so now it's real. Nobody had to tell me it was a sin. Nobody had to tell me anything. I could see that picture and see the truth. And so I'm amazed that God lets me work in this ministry. I'm amazed that they asked me to be the executive director of all people. But I'll tell you what, I understand how women feel. And you have to personify that baby. That's what the ultrasound does.
Well, Robyn, you're yet another example of God's mercy and grace.
Amen.
And giving a second chance, right?
Yeah, he's redeemed the time for sure.
And not only that, but you can speak to the women from a point of view of having an abortion and rejecting it and not wanting to have it repeated for them. So that gives you credibility that perhaps those of us who haven't experienced abortion do have.
I would like to say that it's so much more common than people think. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion in the United States before they're 45. And now that I have started telling my story, I found out that very close relatives to me, 2 of them have had abortions. And whenever I go and give my talk, I can't think of a time when it hasn't happened that either a man or a woman has come to me and the men will say, I paid for one, I was involved with that. Or the women will tell me, and, there are abortion healing classes available at the pregnancy care centers. And I'm sure that's available all over, because really you need to know that God's grace is sufficient and that he forgives it and know how to move forward.
You're right. And Cassandra, you have been so patient all this time. Well, actually, this question's pertain to both Robyn and you, but we'll start with you on this one. Why is ultrasound such a unique experience for women?
The reason why I got into this in the first place was when I had my daughter, and I felt so sick. I was throwing up 5 times a day, but I didn't feel pregnant until I saw her on the ultrasound at about 8 weeks. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a cool job would this be? And so I just love how real it makes it for the mom to see the baby up there. And especially in that first trimester, the probe that we use shows so much more definition than some other places do. And so I think it helps the moms to realize like, oh, that's like a real baby and they're not just a clump of cells like what the world is telling us it is.
That comes as quite a surprise, I'm sure, to many women that you perform the ultrasound on. Robyn, your comments?
Well, I was thinking of what our sonographers and nurses say. When you're early on, you're not seeing a bouncing baby, but you are definitely seeing life and the heartbeat. And what they say when they come in is, we've instructed the people in our bus to not talk, just to let the sonographer say what she's going to say. And she always tells the client, she says, "What do you see?" And, the client's like, "I think I see a head. I think I see an arm," and you're like, yes. And you would think in this age of YouTube and everything that everybody would know, but they don't. And it's just so powerful.
Yeah, it is. The next question Robyn's answered, but I'd like to hear Cassandra's thoughts on that. What takes place when you're performing an ultrasound?
So I think that the biggest thing that is so powerful is hearing the heartbeat. So many moms don't realize at 6 weeks, we can hear the heartbeat. As soon as I see that little fetal pull, there's a little heart flicker there. And I think that so many people don't realize that. And every week there's something different, and, movement, and at 9 weeks, and you can really see a fully formed baby at like 10 weeks. So that's why I love ultrasound. It's every single week. There's something new and exciting happening.
And I suppose with your excitement, it's contagious for the women and men who are in that room with you.
Yeah, I've heard that some people are like, I wasn't excited about this, but now seeing it and hearing you being like, "Oh, there's the heart, there's the head, there's a little arm," people, they just change their mind and they're like, "That's my baby." And Mama Bear comes out and they are ready to take on the role of being a mom.
Now, is Joanna's reaction to hearing the heartbeat of her child similar to what you're experiencing as you do ultrasounds?
Yes, I have been doing ultrasounds for about 3 years now, and I still get super excited when I'm hearing the heartbeat. And so many, when we've done the abortion pill reversal and we get to scan and we see that there's a heartbeat, I have cried at that, because it's amazing that this, it didn't work and the baby is still there. And it's so exciting for us too, as a sonographer, that this baby's life has been saved.
Robyn, did you want to add anything to that?
We have Kleenex back there in the ultrasound room, because they're crying, we're crying, the client advocate's crying. It's just very exciting and emotional. And like I said, when you personify that baby, it's no longer just, a bundle of cells. Or when I went to reproductive services and had the abortion, they called it a product of conception. Well, yeah, it is, but it's wonderful.
It's disguised as a baby, isn't it?
It surely is.
Yeah. As far as reactions, I want to ask you both again regarding Joanna's reaction, but to taking the pill. Right after she took the pill, Thomas and Joanna felt remorse and that they were convinced they did the wrong thing. Is that a similar reaction that you're hearing about when you are doing ultrasounds on women who took the pill?
Yes, I would say so. I have had many people who have come in and they are just devastated. As soon as they take it, it's like it hits, and reality is, what did I just do? And they are so worried about what people are going to think, or how am I going to raise this baby? Whatever led them to taking that pill is more the focus until they take it. And then I think they realize, like, oh, what did I just do? And so I've had so many people come in, and it's just such a relief when you can show them, hey, the baby is okay right now, and we're going to try to save this baby by, getting that prescription for you.
Robyn?
Well, we're on the side where women are coming to us to find out how far along they are. Normally, we will get calls later on after they've taken the pill, or if they've taken the first pill, we can usually get them connected with a doctor that could give them the prescription that Joanna and Thomas were talking about to reverse it. But if they've taken the second one, it's not always possible. And I've had a couple of instances where the women called us just hysterically upset, because when I had an abortion, for you women, it's like a pap smear. You're not seeing anything. When you take that pill and you deliver that baby at home, you're seeing everything, and it's just awful. And we actually had a client come to us with her aborted baby in a box, asking us what to do. And she was Catholic, and we were able to, and Hispanic, we were able to call a local church, and they have a place in the cemetery here where he buried the baby. But I mean, that woman is severely traumatized. And, if you look online at abortion pills, it tells you take a day off work. It's like a heavy period. No, you're going into labor in your home without anybody with you that's medical. It's a terrible experience. So sorry to be so graphic, but that's what we hear on our end.
Yes. And a friend of mine who is part of an OBGYN practice said that they regularly get frantic calls from women who have delivered their babies and don't know what to do with them. They've called the Planned Parenthood or whatever, and they've told them to flush it down the toilet, and they can't begin to do that. So they're just reaching out to others who might provide some sort of humanitarian answer for them. It's a very vile and anti-woman thing that they're imposing on these women.
It
and
is.
We're so grateful for those who have been able to reverse their abortions and deliver babies and have a blessing. So with this comment, Thomas and Joanna, I hope you're realizing you're not alone in your experience. You're with a multitude of others, and thankfully we're going to provide answers for them.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember when they gave me the first dose, they said, once you take this, there is no reversing it. You have to take the second one within, I think it was 24 to 48 hours. So they tell you as soon as you take that first pill, there is no reversing it.
Let's go back, start with you, Cassandra and Robyn, both. I'd like you to answer this question if you're able. Can you share a story of an abortion-minded woman who came in and who changed her mind after seeing the ultrasound?
Yeah, I actually got to hold a sweet baby that I helped save. I had a mom come in one day, and I honestly didn't remember, but she handed me her sweet little son, who was maybe 3 months at the time, and he just had these big blue eyes, little gummy smile looking at me. So I'm holding him, and she's telling me the story about how one of our sidewalk counselors convinced her to come over to our clinic, and that I was the one who did the ultrasound. And she had no idea how far along she was. I think she was 14 weeks at the time. And she was just amazed at how big he was, and he was moving around. And I got the little hand on there and I froze it, and I took a picture and said, "Hi, Mom," on the screen. And she said that that's when she knew that she was going to keep him. And she was just so thankful. She brought our whole office some cupcakes. And she was like, "I can't imagine what life would be without him. And he's my little prince." And he was just the sweetest little thing.
Wonderful. Robyn?
Well, I have a situation. This just happened here in Montgomery about 3 weeks ago. We had a 13-year-old that came on our bus. She was pregnant. She was with her mom and her dad, not the father of the baby, but her dad. And, one of the fallacies, I think, is that we usually see a lot of teenage pregnancies. That's not true. Normally, our demographic is 20 to 29 years old, already having one child. So this was unusual. And the teenagers we do meet that are pregnant want their babies. And this one, she did want her baby, but her father was like adamantly against it. So they had the ultrasound. They're looking at the baby. So we invite the dad who'd stayed outside. We said, come in. So he came in. He's like, she's having an abortion. We're not doing this. And then he looks at the screen and he says, "Well, that's a baby. We can't kill that." And we're like, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said. We can't kill that. And so we have seen in 7 years, it'll be 7 years in December that we've been here, we've had, that we know of, 421 women who planned abortions who have changed their minds. And, I'm not under the impression that everybody tells us the truth when they come on, we're strangers to them. But we know of those because they've come back, sent us pictures, showed us, called us, and it's so exciting. We follow up too. We call and see how they're doing. And then I want to also bring up that we've had 342 professions of faith on the bus, because this is a time when women are very vulnerable and they need resources, but what they really need is a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so what we do is we share the gospel with them and their families. So it's just been an amazing journey.
Saving lives for now and eternity, aren't you?
Amen. Our mission statement is we use the power of ultrasound to serve women, save babies, and share Jesus.
Great. what advice do you have for women who are considering an abortion?
I would just say come and get an ultrasound, like a real one where we're going to show you the most, like the best picture of what is going on inside that womb that you can see so that you can make the decision knowing what is there. Because so many people just think, oh, it's just a clump of cells. It's too early. There's not anything. And there is something. And it's just amazing to me how many women are like, what is going on in there? They have no idea. And I see it every day. And I know what a huge thing it is to be able to see the ultrasound and make it real for the mom and the dads too. The dads are like, oh my gosh, what? I had no idea.
Robyn?
From our perspective, I told you our mission statement says the first thing is we serve women. Although Jesus is on our bus with us, we don't have him all over outside the bus. We portray ourselves as totally a medical clinic. And we just invite them to come in and take a seat and have a moment to take a breath without everybody else's, opinions or what the voices are saying. Sit down, tell us how you feel. With people who are non-judgmental, we're not going to condemn them. They have to make their own decision. Of course, we are pro-life, but we can't talk them out of having an abortion. What we can do is tell them the truth, show them their baby, and we believe the Holy Spirit does the work because they're looking sometimes at a gummy bear up there. It is amazing to me that people think you're going to see a full-size baby, and you do later on down the road. But when you're 8, 7, we do ultrasounds early, really early on abortion-minded women. 7, 8, 9 weeks, you're still going to see a heartbeat. You're still going to see that little bean, and the Holy Spirit does the work. And then what we do after that is very important too. We, of course, if they allow us to share the gospel, we offer them community resources because there's all kinds of resources that are available for women. But if they don't know about it, it's like it's not there. And then the last thing we do is we pray with them and we ask them for permission to follow up. And we follow up as long as we can until they've either made the connection with getting their pregnancy Medicaid, connected with the pregnancy center, got a doctor's appointment, going to Earn While You Learn classes, any of those things that are going to help them. And then we call them the month their baby's due and ask them to come show us their baby. So it's a great relationship.
They know they're not alone, not just for that moment, but in the long run. Joanna and Thomas, what advice do you have for a young woman and man who are abortion-minded?
Yeah, I would say definitely getting an ultrasound. I feel like once you see that baby, it makes everything real. And I say this all the time, like you'll never regret having the baby, but if you go the abortion route, that sticks with you forever.
Well said. Thomas?
Living with that decision of an abortion, it will haunt you for the rest of your life, similar to what Joanna said. That decision is going to haunt you. And I had that brief experience of living through making that decision. I wasn't the same person. It takes a piece of you. And when you decide to keep that baby and have that baby, they're just going to bring more joy and blessing and love into your life. And that's the right decision. There's no coming back from the other side of this.
Joanna, I'd like to ask you what advice you have for those who are working to protect life.
I wish that these resources were easier to come across because it's so hard. Even me now, I'm starting to do a little more research, and it is common to find people who will help women in need. And I never knew that these resources even existed. So just getting the word out, spreading it more. It's so easy to find a Planned Parenthood, but to find other resources to help women, single women, or women who are in certain situations, I guess just spreading the word and just making it accessible.
Robyn, you're on the front lines of this life and death battle. What advice would you have for advocates of life?
First of all, I think share your stories. There's so much silence about abortion. It's come around a little bit now that since Roe v. Wade, it's more in the news, so people are more willing to talk about it. But what I found in the South, and we're supposed to be the biggest Christian area in the country, is, we don't talk about the A word. We do not. A large part of what I do is that we take the bus to churches and we let people tour the bus and see. And sometimes I don't talk at all. Sometimes they ask me to give my story. And I think that if we talk about abortion, we talk about what it really is, we talk about the truth, it helps people to come out and talk about it, because I promise you, people are considering it in all different walks of life, in your church, in your office, in your school. People that you would never think have had an abortion have, and they need to talk about it to help the people that are considering it know there's another way.
You're right. And polling and research shows, Robyn, that those who identify as Christians have abortions about as much as those who do not. So,
right. And if we don't talk about it, where do they have that voice in their head, their pastor's voice, talking and advising them? Now, that is one thing I will say about the Catholic Church. At least here, man, they have it in their bulletins. They talk about it all the time. I am so proud of my Catholic brothers and sisters because they go there.
Thank you all. Thank you for sticking with us and being part of this great show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You know, Brad, it seems like I find myself saying this often with the conversations that we have, but truly it's such a blessing to be able to hear these stories. And I can only imagine how many hearts and minds will be touched. As, for example, Thomas and Joanna, they share their story of how frightening that was and how alone they felt. And you know, as Thomas described it, I think he put it so powerfully that in his experience, it was like he was given a taste of hell, that remorse and the regret. Their story, you know, obviously it ends in hope and it ends in an example that they can share with other people. But I can only hope and pray that that will really touch the hearts and minds of tons of people.
Well, you know, the takeaway for me, Victor, is also from the lips of Thomas and from a father's point of view. And it's obvious even when their daughter was in the womb. You know, our brains are wired to provide and protect for our offspring. And when she took that pill, Joanna took that pill, they instantly knew they had done the wrong thing. And as you mentioned, Thomas felt he was in hell. Well, that is because in his mind, he failed when it counted most, and that was to protect the life of his little daughter. And so he went on a search, not just any search. He dug and dug. He was a man on a mission until he found success, because he was out to save his daughter's life. And that underscores just how important it is that we get this information of abortion pill reversal out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. And speaking of, if there happens to be any men out there who are on that same search that Thomas was on, we want to make that as easy for you as we possibly can. So I want you to go to our website, lifeissues.org. There you'll find information on the abortion pill reversal, information that, as Thomas said, the abortion industry really doesn't want you to find. We're going to make that as easy to access as we possibly can. You can also find information from Life on Wheels, and you can see some pictures of ultrasound images for yourself. I want to encourage you while you're on our website to join the Life Defenders today. Become a Life Defender through your monthly donation. Be a part of our work to continue to save babies and promote a culture of life across America. Giving monthly in any amount is a tremendous commitment to the pro-life movement, one that will be felt. We can't all be sidewalk counselors and we can't all be sonographers helping the pro-life cause, but what we can do is support pro-life education that is so vital through a monthly donation. Monthly giving helps us reach more persuadable people with the pro-life message, and monthly giving enables the creation of this very podcast and the platform that we're using today. Help us do more for the babies by becoming a defender of life today. You can easily sign up on our website, lifeissues.org. As always, Straight Talk on Life Issues will continue to tackle relevant topics, the ones that matter the most to you. So be sure to join us next week for another Straight Talk on Life Issues.